Welcome to the Community Immunity Series. I really hope you enjoy this selection of hand-picked people that I've chosen to interview to share with you their knowledge and their insights about how you can navigate through these times with physical resilience, with emotional calm. Make sure that you're subscribed so you get notifications of when each interview is being released. Take advantage of it while it's up for the 24 hours. And just know, of course, that if you want access to all of the recordings forever, then you can purchase the package as well. So without further ado, let's dive in and enjoy. All right, wonderful. Thank you so much for being on the call with us here, Andrea.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, looking forward to diving into this conversation. I just mentioned before we started that once this morning and at least twice, kind of this past week or two, definitely there are a lot of mothers in our community who are reaching out. They're looking for information, looking for answers, looking for guidance, and I know you'll be able to provide that. So we're grateful that you're here to share your expertise and your knowledge. Maybe to get started, what do you feel is most important for mothers right now, whether expecting or having little ones at home, to think, to feel, to be aware of? What would your kind of off the top advice be?
I definitely think it can feel like a little bit stressful right now to be going through pregnancy, birth, and all these things in this moment. So I think the most important thing is to really stay informed, know what is happening, and find ways to manage stress, to manage fear, anxiety. There's lots of amazing tools, and I think I think they can really, really help in this situation.
Yeah, no, for sure. So on that note, what are kind of some recommendations, things that have worked for you, some of your clients, in managing that stress and that fear?
Well, like I said, I think staying informed is a really good, really important one.
Mm-hmm.
Just having all the information and knowing exactly what's going on always, especially in this case, I think is more reassuring in that, up to now what we know, like pregnant women aren't in the high numbers of cases, as well as infants and children. So luckily, those seem to be some of the least affected people with what's going on right now. So I think that's like really great news, and that also just having that information can help moms feel better. With my clients, I work a lot with meditation, deep relaxation tools. I really love also Qigong, which is can also really help with like stress and anxiety, but really as well like strengthen your energy system, strengthen your body, strengthen your immune system. So it's like a really like great tool all around. So those are some of like my favorite things to do with clients.
Yeah, that's awesome. And and definitely when you're recommending those foundational practices of meditation and qigong, like you say, they are so supportive, to our mental and emotional health, but also our physical health and our immunity.
Yeah.
And it definitely steers clear of kind of a lot of the maybe gray areas when it comes to food, nutrition, and most especially like herbs as well. Because I know, sometimes I joke about it, but I know it's serious. It's like if you're pregnant breastfeeding, before drinking a glass of water, consult your doctor, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I guess in that sense too, like every woman will feel comfortable, like their comfort level will be different in terms of different herbs or things that they want to take, and as well as their healthcare providers. They're all comfortable with different things. But one thing for sure, like you said, is like meditation's like an overall good for everybody. Qigong as well. They're really amazing tools. And I think in this time they can really help manage just like the stress that as a collective we're also going,
Yeah, for sure. Now, in regards to kind of those, especially with herbs, the gray area, correct me if I'm wrong, this is my interpretation of it, but, like I was joking, if you're going to drink water, consult your doctor. There's very, very, very little research out there in regards to, especially herbal protocols. And my interpretation of that is, well, obviously we can't ethically, conduct trials. Is this safe for pregnant women or not, right? So it's just an area that just overall across the board we haven't gone to, and that the information that we do have has usually come out of herbal traditions where, they've got generations of use of, herbs that we absolutely know are safe, like nettles or raspberry leaf tea, those kinds of things. But anything kind of new or, questionable, of course, we're always going to default to, we don't know, and we're not about to test and experiment.
Exactly. And that's like, for example, I really, really love medicinal mushrooms, and they're kind of in that gray zone. And so what I base like my comfort level on as well, for example, some of them I know they have been taken for so many years in China traditionally, such as like reishi and chaga. And so I figure, if they've been part of that culture for a really long time, then I feel comfortable with them. And I know still some healthcare providers today would be like, well, there's not enough research for us to be able to say yes or no that they're safe or not. And so I think that's where just like every person has to decide what they feel comfortable with. And I think that like just the fact that we know that a lot of people have taken them for many, many years is a great way to base it on. And then there's other mushrooms that are, have just been coming more into use now. And so it's like, well, better stay away from them because we really don't know. There's not enough information or trials or anything that has been done. So
Yeah, absolutely. And when you mention something like reishi, like with that long-term cultural use, I mean, it's got so many benefits, like, really when you're looking to the medicinal mushrooms, especially in this kind of, short window of life, really, at the end of the day, it is a short, precious time, like you say, let's just, if you feel comfortable, stick with those ones versus maybe the more exotic ones or different ones that we don't necessarily have that cultural view into. Reishi is enough, and if you're looking to get mushrooms in that regard.
yeah, exactly. And since we're talking about reishi, this is one of really my favorites. And we were talking earlier about managing stress, and one of the reasons why I also really love reishi is because of that support, like emotional support as well.
Yeah.
It's really, really soothing, and helps relieve stress, helps like calm the nervous system, helps open the heart. And so that's one of my favorites. And again, it's for each woman to decide what they feel comfortable with. Talk with their healthcare providers about that. I know like it's been used in China for a really, really long time. And Ron Teagarden even like has labeled the term like reishi babies, of like babies that are born from moms that have taken reishi throughout their pregnancy and like during breastfeeding, or usually tend to be like more calm and yeah, don't cry as much. And so there's that more just like empirical evidence.
Yeah, for sure. No, I'm glad you mentioned that. I've developed a little kind of tool, an acronym. I describe it to help people navigate this because science is important, and we often place that as kind of like the top, the pinnacle. And this tool doesn't dispute that. It honors the place that science has for us to intelligently, make decisions around what foods or diets or herbs we're going to take on. And but it puts it in the context of okay, science. It's there, it's wonderful, can tell us what's in a food or a herb, how it's going to affect our body. Wonderful. But there's also these other lenses that we can use to look at things, through. And you've just mentioned one of them, which is culture, right? How have people consumed this? How long have they consumed it? When? I mean, there's such a rich wealth of wisdom within culture that we can really look to as guidance. And then the other lenses are so in the scope, the food scope, it's science, culture. O is opinions or others, observations of others, kind of more that anecdotal, not to be discounted, right? But not to be, solely used. And that's the idea, is that there's this, you put all the lenses together, and the last one is personal experience, right?
Yeah.
So how does it work for one? So awesome. Let's chat a little bit about more mushrooms. I mean, maybe this might be coming from my preference here, but usually when someone comes into the store, medicinal mushrooms, maybe it's for a mother, maybe it's for children. I'll often refer them to the New Earth Organics brand, and there's other ones like it, but it's fruiting body and mycelium. It's kind of like a whole food powdered extract, like it's still in an extract form, but it's a lot milder, a lot more gentle than maybe say like the dual extract, that Light Cellar brand or the Harmonic Arts, which are just that much more potent.
Yeah.
Sure, one could use less, but I always feel that it just seems like more gentle on the system, and and a mother and a child, they don't need that like mega hit of mushrooms. So just for viewers as they're watching, keep in mind, as you're exploring, okay, what herb is safe, there's also different forms it comes in and different strengths as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's good that you mentioned that. I also really love recommending the New Earth Organics. I think they're really nice and gentle, and yet they're really, really nice effect on the body. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. No, we would definitely want to credit that, like effective yet still being
Yeah.
gentle. Absolutely. Okay, cool. What other recommendations? Obviously, right now, immunity is top of mind, and we know we've had many other experts on this series talking about the medicinal mushrooms, how they benefit their body. What are other herbs? Let's start there, and then we can explore other practices and foods and such to help kind of build immunity.
So if we're talking in terms of pregnancy, I would say echinacea is one of the best and safe. It's a really safe herb to take during pregnancy, as well as ginger and turmeric. Those are some of my favorite for pregnancy postpartum. They're very safe and very effective. And in that sense, that's also the thing about pregnancy and postpartum, is that you really have to make sure that any herb or supplement you take is safe during pregnancy, as we talked about earlier. So those would be like my go-tos for immunity. There's also, vitamins. So if we want to go more into the supplements, I would say, vitamin C is really important and really great for immunity. If you're taking like a good prenatal vitamin, you usually wouldn't need to take more vitamin C, as in like high doses. It isn't good for pregnancy.
Right.
To take it in high doses. Vitamin A and D are also really important for immunity. And so I always also, with my clients, I always recommend a good fish oil as well. So if you're taking a really good fish oil, cod liver oil, then you already have the vitamin A and the D there. That is also really amazing anyway for pregnancy, because all the omegas are really important for like the baby's brain and nervous system development. So if you're taking a good fish oil, then you have those vitamins covered, which are also important for immunity. So I think, those are like the main ones. And zinc is also really, really great for immunity, but as well, if you're taking a good prenatal, then that should be covered. And then not specific for immunity, but important during pregnancy is also folic acid. So folate, and, talking about, especially if we're talking about right now, things to be mindful of is it's come up as an important thing to take during pregnancy with whole COVID, is that, if you were to get sick during your first trimester and get a fever, then folate really helps protect the baby from any defects that could happen because of mom having a high fever. And that's one of the big conversations happening around COVID, is like, well, what happens to the baby if the mom gets sick, especially if it's in the first trimester. And so that's where folate would play an important role in helping baby and preventing anything.
Cool. Yeah, that's great. And thanks for clarifying that when you mentioned about vitamin C, zinc, and the folic acid. Like if you're taking a prenatal vitamin, just kind of is that prevention, just keeping yourself healthy, that'll be enough. You don't need to kind of mega dose, and one shouldn't.
Exactly.
And then
Yeah, and if you were, especially these days, if you're pregnant and you were to start developing any symptoms, then, again, you could talk with your healthcare provider and see if it would be a good idea to maybe take a little bit more of zinc, a little bit more vitamin C just while you have symptoms, and that could be probably a good idea. But as like a preventative, as immunity, I think just like if you're taking good prenatal, that's enough.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I love your recommendation of the cod liver oil. That's a good standard suggestion. Not a
Yeah.
lot of people know actually. Cod liver oil used to be a part of the Canada Food Guide, believe it or not.
Huh.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. I mean, I take it every day, and I think, yeah, it's really, really great for all women. Just for women's health in general, it's amazing. So that's a really important one for both mom and baby, like for pregnancy and during breastfeeding in the postpartum time.
yeah, for sure. So my son, he's almost 8 months now, and he's definitely really interested in food, and we've been feeding him, for the last like almost 2 months. And one of his absolute favorite foods is a little bit of we have the cod liver oil butter blend, and
Yeah,
we put it
yeah.
on the spoon, and he goes nuts for it. He just loves it.
I tried that with my son as well, and it didn't go that well. That's the same one that I take, so I have to find ways to hide it in his food, but I do, because it's just such a, even for babies, it's such an amazing amazing supplement. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. The only disadvantage is he gets it all over himself, right? His hands, his face, like sometimes in his hair and his clothes, and it's like, oh, all right, we got. It's like anytime he has that, like we got to go give him a bath because he
Yeah.
smells like fish.
Yeah, that's true.
Cool, awesome. And then of course, in terms of, I'm sure you'd recommend broths as well as another.
Yes. I also love bone broths. Those are one of my favorite, just like superfoods. Also, again, especially pregnancy and postpartum. And bone broths have been like traditionally used for postpartum women in all cultures for like hundreds and hundreds of years. Women would always have like their mother or their aunt or just all the women supporting them, like make them mostly soups and broths and stews, and just that's exactly what a postpartum mother needs. I love recommending that as part of your pregnancy foods as well. Just they're so rich in like all sorts of vitamins and minerals, and they have a really healthy fats, and they're also really easy to incorporate to your diet. You can make soups with them, stews, just sip a cup of broth instead of tea. So it's a really like easy thing to incorporate that has like so many benefits. And also with postpartum, for example, I recommend you can add some of these herbs when you're making the broth as well, such as nettles, and then your broth gets like really rich in iron. You could also, if you want, I love to like add chaga or reishi, some of these mushrooms as well. And so then you can also incorporate the herbs, and they're also a little bit more gentle, like you were saying earlier, on the system when they're just like cooked into the broth. And so it's a really great medium as well to get some of the other herbs into.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I was going to ask if you had any special additions that you like to add to the broth. So mushrooms are number one. I assume you add vegetables. Have you ever added sea vegetables? Is that something that you add as well?
Vegetables are really great as well. Any kind of mushrooms, also like I love also adding like shiitakes, and then these dried mushrooms like reishi and chaga. Nettles are really great because they're one of like the best sources of iron. So during pregnancy and in postpartum, where we really need to like keep our iron levels up, like they're really, really great food. And it's easy to just add some nettles to your bone broth.
Yeah. Have you ever?
Ginger, we talked about ginger earlier, and that's also a really easy one to like add into your broth, and then just give it a little more heat. So especially in postpartum, where we're trying to like eat nice and like warming foods to so a new mom really needs like warming foods, because in Chinese medicine they say when the baby's born, the mom loses a lot of heat, and so the initial postpartum period is all about like replenishing that lost heat. So warming foods, not just in temperature but in quality. So then that's where like ginger and cinnamon and all these herbs are really great. So even to the broth, you can add them all in, and then if you have that broth to make other soups or to just sip it, then you're replenishing all day.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Any other kind of thoughts or considerations for mom, like as we kind of go through, pregnancy, through to postpartum, to breastfeeding? Any other like thoughts or considerations that kind of through those stages for this time right now?
Um, well, yeah. So one of the things is I was saying earlier is that it's also still we're in the early stages of COVID and everything that's happening right now. So there's not tons of research, but one thing that we have seen is that infants, children, and also pregnant women seem to have much milder symptoms than other people if they present any at all.
Right.
So in that sense, I think it's like really reassuring that um, they're not the population that's most at risk right now. And I think that's important to know. I mean, with more evidence coming up, that might shift in the future, but right now that's what we have seen. I think it's also important for moms to know that it, babies, they haven't noticed any cases where babies have gotten it in utero. So that's also a really great thing to know. So no babies are like born with it. There have been some infants that have contracted it within the first days of life. However, again, they didn't seem to really show any complications. So I think that's like really reassuring news. And it's an important factor to consider. And just with that in mind too, just like we said, having tools in your life, like with food, with your meditation, like all these different tools that can help you just navigate the times, is an important thing. And you'd mentioned about this earlier too, but I think breastfeeding is also an important thing to mention, where they have not found any COVID virus in the breast milk as well, so it's not transmitted that way. And as we all know, breast milk is like one of the most amazing, like nourishing foods on this planet.
Yeah.
So now I think is a time, especially a time where breastfeeding is like more important than ever. And really, really great thing to keep doing throughout, especially throughout those first months, to keep baby strong and healthy.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it was Rumina Naturals. They just did a post recently, something about like, if you or your baby present any signs or symptoms of, fever or anything, keep breastfeeding. Like every kind of scenario, like the answer was keep breastfeeding, keep breastfeeding. So
Yeah, always keep breastfeeding. And so the same, they said, if mom presents any symptoms or even test positive, you should still keep breastfeeding. And so if you're within that also, there's the concern of getting baby sick. So even if you're breastfeeding, you can still wear a mask to prevent any spread. You can still wash your hands constantly. Some people have also suggested, if you're feeling very sick, you can always pump and then have somebody else give the baby with a bottle. And bottle feeding for a few days is perfect, is great. And that's really, really helpful and way better than not breastfeeding. So even if mom were to be sick, like there's still a lot of things that we can do to prevent baby getting sick. And one of those things is also breast milk. Like breast milk is the best for their immune system, for them to be strong and to be able, even if they were to get sick, to be able to fight it off.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And maybe even if someone's near kind of the end of that breastfeeding, if their child isn't feeding as much and food is a big part, I know we've done it in the past, like mixing breast milk into the food, right?
Yeah.
It's one of the best ways to support your children, as you just said.
Yeah. And somebody else I heard the other day recommending as well, maybe pumping a little bit more from the beginning, just as a preventative. And I think that would be a really good idea, is for new moms that are just giving birth right now, if it might, it doesn't affect you in any way to just be pumping a little bit more, have a stash in the freezer. And if anybody were to get sick, you also, if you're not feeling that great, you have a good stash in the freezer. Somebody else can feed baby and you can have some more time to rest. So I think, in these times that might be also a really good thing to do. And, if everybody stays healthy and then great, you can use that milk later on anyway. So
Yeah, no, totally. It's we stock up food for everyone else. It's just
exactly.
stocking up food for baby.
Yeah.
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 Cool. So I imagine, and maybe we can get into this now, for children of various ages, kind of as they begin to transition to foods and those that are already fully on it, you probably have a lot of the same recommendations. What's good for mom is good for baby. We talked a little bit about mushrooms. How about in terms of supporting in their immunity, maybe if they aren't breastfeeding, or either or, right? So what would you recommend for the little ones?
Yeah, for little ones, I don't think they need really much in terms of supplements and herbs, except in the diet. I think that diet is where that plays a really important role. So again, like bone broths are amazing, have so many vitamins and minerals. Eating like just really good whole foods, like dark leafy greens are really also amazing foods. Eggs, liver. So just all these foods that I always recommend for moms anyway, I think are the foods that are really great for children. A variety of fruits and vegetables, some whole grains, and then they're really getting like all the vitamins and minerals that they need from their food. And then when they're a little bit older, there's always the option of also having like a multivitamin or a vitamin C. There's all those options now for children as well. Uh,
Yeah.
but I'm not that big on supplementing with children except through food. So for example, I made a big pot of bone broth the other day here, and I added some reishi and some chaga, and we all have that broth, and so I know my 2-year-old is also getting all those benefits from the mushrooms as well. But I don't ever give him like the powders directly. I don't think at this stage he needs them, but he can get them through the food. So also that, just finding ways to incorporate some of these foods. Um, and one that I do think is also really safe and great for children is echinacea. So if there's any need to like have some more like immunity support or any signs of child getting a little bit sick, then echinacea can also be a great immune support, and ginger as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And what do you think about elderberry in terms of?
Elderberry is really great as well for children. It's I've heard some people say it's not necessarily as a prevention, but more to manage symptoms when they first start showing up. So it just helps like fight off any flu, any cold in the first few days, but not necessarily as building up the immune system to prevent you from getting anything. And yeah, I love elderberries. I always every year I make 1 or 2 batches of elderberry syrup, and I just have them in the fridge, and we use it a lot. And just a note on that, elderberry isn't really considered safe for pregnancy, so that's just one thing to consider for
Yeah.
pregnant women.
So not for pregnancy. How about for breastfeeding? Okay at that time?
For breastfeeding, I think it's still to take with caution. But for children, for little children, elderberry syrup is fine. Yep.
Yeah. And what is the caution around elderberry and pregnancy? Do you know?
I'm not really sure,
This,
but
yeah, this is one of
I
those you heard. Yeah.
yeah, one of those that I've heard is just not safe for pregnancy. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we've mentioned liver a couple of times. I know some people have managed to kind of integrate it in their life, and it's a food that they and their kids enjoy. And others, it's like that idea. Okay, I know I should eat it, but maybe haven't got there. One idea that we've implemented, and we don't do it all the time, but every once in a while we might throw a little bit of liver in a bone broth. So actually, it's a good way to kind of at least get some of those nutrients that way versus sitting down and eating liver. Do you have any kind of tricks and techniques that you've helped others with to get liver into their diet if they're maybe hesitant from a flavor or a conceptual?
Yes, well, I love livers. I always have, so I don't have that issue myself. But I
Yeah.
know with my husband, he wasn't that really into just the idea of eating them. But there's so many different ways to prepare them that are really, really delicious. And so I'd I always recommend like my clients to explore like different ways of cooking them. I also love putting them into broths. I think that's a really easy way to incorporate them. My son loves pate. So, for example, I love to make liver pate, and that's like a really great way of getting it into a diet. And I think it's delicious. My husband really likes, I make a like a meatloaf, and then I put in like, it's a great way to get in some organ meat. So sometimes it's liver, other times I tried some heart. And so that's also like a great way to like hide it into a dish that people are used to.
Yeah.
So those are some of the tips. But liver is amazing, and I know for some women, especially during pregnancy, they really can't deal with like the taste or the idea of it. Now there's some people making liver capsules, so it's just like dehydrated liver in caps, and I think there's still like great benefit from doing that.
Yeah, for sure. And I've heard of the concept of like liver pills too, where you cut it up real small and then you freeze it and then you kind of are able just to take that frozen piece almost like a pill. Another way
Yep.
to do
Yeah, yeah.
it.
For babies too, like in the first food, so I tried to introduce liver as like one of the first foods with my son, and it went well at first and then not that well later on. But people recommend you also can just freeze it, have it frozen for a while, and then just like grate it into a soup or some egg, anything like that. So for little kids, they don't need that much either.
Yeah.
So you can easily find ways to incorporate it.
Yeah, for sure. Dakota Cohen, who we've had on this series, he's farmer from up north, and how he actually provides his big portion of his meat is the ground. Is you can have the option to have a certain portion of your total ground meat as liver and heart, so the organs are just ground right in,
Oh,
and you
perfect.
eating that, no one would even know, in that way.
Yeah, that's a really great to already have it ground up for you. And in cases where it's not, like I just put it in the food processor. So I
Yeah.
just like when I make the meatloaf, like I'll just put either the heart or the liver into the food processor and then add it to the ground beef, and works out really well. And I imagine you could make the same thing. You could like make meatballs or even like hamburgers, like with that ground organ meat.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so is there anything else that we're missing, or maybe some, kind of top questions or concerns that you've had over these last couple of weeks that people are coming to you with that we haven't covered?
Um, I think we've covered most of the concerns that have been coming up. I think breastfeeding is one, and yeah, I think breastfeeding is always good, and especially in this time, it's really important. Um, and and the stress management is, I think, the other big one. Just people concerned about being pregnant in these times, and so far there's really like no indication about if a mom were to get sick, that affecting baby in any way. And luckily, as we've said many times before, babies and children, the least like a high risk group. So I think that's just important for moms to know. And there's no evidence yet either that it's not a time to get pregnant right now for those women who are like in the process of wanting to have a baby. I don't think there's really any evidence that it's not safe to do so now. It's just a matter of, I think, considering like if that feels very stressful to you, then maybe that's not the time. Just managing the stress and knowing that it might be a little bit different these days. You might be doing some consultations with your midwife or your doctor via Zoom or telemedicine, and there will be just like some differences in your prenatal care and, you know, your interaction with your healthcare providers. I think that's a big one to know too. But that, you know, we can do so much now online. And I think even in terms of that, like your prenatals, there really is so much that can be done not in person. So
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that because you know when you're wading through the news, right, you get all the kind of stuff at the top, and I know you've put a lot of time and research to kind of get into the bottom and get to those facts and figures that
yeah.
that are emerging but harder to find around, you know, mothers and pregnancy and breastfeeding. So that's really valuable. I was listening to CBC the other day, and they were kind of joking that there actually might be like a boom in babies.
Yeah.
Everyone's like stuck at home in quarantine, you know, like yeah, maybe there's an increase of that. And they said that the world at some point may run out of condoms because the largest manufacturer out of Malaysia, they've shut down as a non-essential service. Apparently they produce 1 in 5 condoms. So
Wow.
yeah, if they stop, that's another factor. We could have another boom of babies during this time.
Yeah, I thought about that too. I think December and January next year might be quite busy for, you know, maternity care. And that, you know, I really think I've had some clients that I work with for fertility that have been asking me, like, you know, if they should continue with their plans. And I think there really isn't enough evidence right now to say no, you know, and just knowing that there's, you know, you might want to just pay more attention to those supplements and those like really nutritious foods so that, you know, you stay nice and strong and healthy, and, you know, finding ways to like work with stress and all that. But otherwise, I think there really isn't enough evidence right now to say like it wouldn't be safe. Just knowing it's going to be a little bit different.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're gonna make it through this, you know, and
Exactly.
yeah, kind of one of the questions I like to end off with. I've got two. So the first one is, you know, how can people find you, and you know, resources that you may have, and you know, I assume you do consults, and so just give us a like, little spiel there, and then how we can reach you.
Sure. So my business name is Ma, and you can find me online at mawomenshealth.com. And yeah, I work with clients in fertility, pregnancy, and postpartum mostly, and also I do women's health. But around birth is like my main area of work, and already was seeing clients online before, and now that's that's the only way I'm seeing clients. But I also teach. I do a lot of different workshops around like how to prepare for postpartum, foods for postpartum, tools for fertility, tools for women's health, women's empowerment. So a lot of those workshops too, I was already starting to develop them to have them online, and I will have them in a few weeks. So yeah, that's one way that people can find me and connect. And again, there's lots of really great resources right now as well for pregnant women and postpartum.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well, thanks for being out there, being available for everyone in this time and beyond as well. So,
Yeah.
kind of, yeah. The final question is what are your hope for the world, for society as we move through this? Obviously, it's a big, massive shift. It's gonna, you know, gonna take some time. But what sort of silver lining do you see or would like to see out of this?
Yeah, you know, I've been thinking about this a lot. I think that as a humanity, we've like maybe never had such a big transition and shift that has happened so fast and a global level. And so I think that's really telling of, you know, that it there's also like a great potential for positive change. And you know, there's also a lot of suffering and a lot of bad things happening right now, but there's also really great things happening and people showing up for each other in like really amazing ways. And you know, communities maybe getting tighter and people like finding more creative ways to do things. And so I think there's also like we're seeing also a lot of really positive things come from this. And so I think with any big shift, there's always great potential for good or bad. And so I really hope that this can help us like reevaluate some things in our life, realize, what's like really important to us and what our priorities are, and as a collective, start making shifts around that. So I do think there is great potential for positive change. And I mean, of course, whenever there's change, it's also really uncomfortable because it makes us break out of our comfort zone. And even though it could be a good shift, in the future, it can still be very uncomfortable right now. So I think we're going through that, but I think there's a lot of people finding ways to like find that silver lining and bring about some positive changes. So I'm really looking forward to see what develops in that.
Yeah, cool. Well, thanks for being part of that positive change.
Yeah.
Yeah, and such a great resource for the community. So again, you can find Andrea at mawomenshealth.com. Lots of resources there, including consultations and online courses, and the physical courses that we will get back to.
We will get back to.
We're going to host Andrea as part of the spring class calendar. Obviously, that's all on pause right now, but we'll definitely be having her teacher courses through Light Cellar. She's an incredible wealth of wisdom. So thanks again, Andrea, for spending some time with us. All the best to you and your family during this this time of transition. Stay well, and we'll see you on the other side.
Thank you so much, and same to you. Stay safe and healthy, and enjoying family.
All right, wonderful.
Bye.
Really hope you enjoyed that interview. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are receiving notifications of all the videos coming out. And if you want access to the entire video series, something that you can replay, you can share with friends and family, then definitely make sure you take advantage of the offer to get access to all of that. And thank you again for being part of this community in this series called Community Immunity.